Moving from that into happier news, there is a new identity report out from CyberArk about non-human identities, specifically talking about their growth and prevalence as we see more and more AI agents. In their research, they found that NHIs now outnumber actual human identities at a ratio of 82 to 1, which is growing very quickly as orgs adopt AI systems that need their own permissions or access controls. Experts are highlighting that there needs to be a plan of governance and review in place to secure AI infrastructure before we see more of these researched attacks actually moving to adversarial attacks, in particular where agents get a level of autonomy and access to sensitive data. Obviously, AI agents present unique challenges. These are not the only form of NHIs. We also see this with third-party app login, with API keys. There's other examples of this, but we are seeing a big increase driven by adoption of AI agents. Also, expect attacks against agents. There's a new novel attack that we're seeing on a weekly or bi-weekly basis right now. There was another story that we didn't have time to include for this week about encoding a prompt injection into a high-res image that's only visible when that image gets downscaled for processing by the agent. So we are still discovering kind of these fundamental vulnerabilities as these things become more widely adopted. Especially things like personal assistant agents may require the same level or greater permissions than human counterparts due to unpredictable LLM permissions and behavior and developers oftentimes defaulting to, I'm going to ask to make sure that I have as much access as I'm possibly going to need versus more strictly scoping. So yeah, we've got some details here. Asking a person responsible for the AI and identifying NHIs with unique identifiers. Only configure NHIs with the necessary permissions, using that allow all versus customize, double check the customize. I love the advice to detect and block injection attacks. That's excellent advice. Just know that in advance. There are some great resources already out from OWASP. I have one mentioned here in the notes. I'll include that in the resources. But OWASP is enumerating the most common attack methods that are being leveraged against LLMs and AI agents. So familiarizing yourselves with those in the same way that we've kind of learned that shorthand at the top 10 for web attacks is going to be a good starting point for getting a handle on this. Mike, what should folks consider if they're kind of trying to start to build an inventory of NHIs in their environment? Some common areas to consider, common methods of trying to surface those?
It's funny. It's like, okay, don't do prompt injection. It's like, we'll just go to monthofaibugs.com and you'll see all the bugs that were found in August. So it's like hilariously not a thing at all.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is to just like reframe what you think an agent is, right? Like, it's not a magic service that just happens and does things. These are, programs or command line tools that like run on whatever behalf you give them and whatever permissions you give them, right? So, the bare minimum for this is definitely inventory them, right? Like, these are assets, these are software assets, these are system assets, treat them like that. Understand like when you're provisioning them, who has access, what privileges they have, monitor the keys for them if you can. It's getting pretty wild now because like some of these literally run on OAuth grants. So, users can just do this if you let them, right? Like, they'll just authorize an AI bot or an agent to like use OAuth and like your permissions with whatever you grant, right? So like be careful when you're granting OAuth scopes for these things, right? Like only give them the amount of things that they need, right? Like if it's a calendar scheduling bot, don't give it access to your email, like, right? Like it just needs access to your calendar, right? Like it's the minimizing of these things. And most of these are being built very quickly. So, assume that's not necessarily being done on the bot side, especially if you're getting these from who knows where, and it's just like an MCP server connecting in. We're kind of in like the AI Wild West right now. I like to think of it as like the early 2000s when everyone figured out that you have to like sanitize input for JavaScript. It's like, yeah, you definitely do. Every web form can't just accept whatever data user puts in. So like that's the other thing here is figure out who can talk to these things, who can put input into these things. It might not be like a chat session, but it might be like scans all incoming email, right? Like, well, I can email you too, right? So understand all the inputs and outputs. And this is where it's like, you really do have to think about what these agents are doing, and then scope them up like very tightly.
Well, and it's interesting because sanitization in the context of, input that could potentially be interpreted as a prompt is a much fuzzier problem. Like if you're trying to prevent XSS attacks, you can do a search for escape character, testing. The avenues of input where that could be appearing that you need to check against. But how do you do a universal sanitization? Do you filter to remove any requests in written communication? Like it's not necessarily practical to do that. So this is going to be an ongoing process, and we're likely going to be in a state for a while where we're seeing novel ways of injecting prompts at a much more rapid pace than best practices to prevent it. So taking that same approach, most of these AI services and tools are still built on a underlying model from one of the major providers, whether that's ChatGPT or who have you. We've seen lots of examples of things like chat conversations that folks had set to private that end up getting indexed by search engines. Take that same approach that we're talking about. If everything that I'm putting into here was public, was discoverable, would that be an issue, and how large would that issue be? That should be one of those questions that you're considering when you're evaluating using a new tool and the level of access that you're granting to it.
Yeah, it's tricky. I was thinking just now about how, prison phone calls are monitored. Yeah, that's kind of like how you have to monitor, bad instructions or, prompt injection. There's no, you know it when you see it.
Right.
You can't just write a rule for it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely are in like a catch-up phase for a lot of that right now, where it's like the tech is moving faster than the controls, which is, I don't know, honestly, how security works for new technology most of the time. Yeah. But like, hopefully we get there, and hopefully like we don't, there's a lot of cost saving methods that are happening right now just because things are so expensive. My hope is like, that's not a place that people skimp because, and then they have to learn the lesson the hard way.